Welcome to Effective and Legal Performance Reviews. Today sponsored by the Ventura County Workforce Development Board. I'm Anna. I'm the Digital Media and Event Strategist here at the California Employers Association, and we just want to thank you all for joining us live this morning. Excuse me. Before we get into today's training, just a couple details to go over with you. So as you see, your audio is muted for today's presentation, but as we're already kicking it off in the chat, there's going to be lots of opportunities to engage during today's training, and we really hope that you do. If you have questions about the content, you can enter those into the Q&A box or into the chat box at any time, and we will try to address them as we go. I'll be here the whole time supporting Astrid, so if you have any questions, we'll make sure that those get answered. Handouts, those will be dropped into the chat box shortly. So once you see the little PDF icon and file name pop up, you can just click on it and it should download locally to your drive. Again, I'll be watching that chat box. So if you have any issues accessing that PDF, please just ping me in the chat and I'll be more than happy to help you. As you saw when you logged on, this webinar is being recorded. And since this Ventura is sponsoring this webinar, they will be reaching out to you all once the playback is ready for review. So make sure you are active on their email list to be notified when that is ready for you. And then last but not least, we will be inviting you to share your feedback today at the end of the training by participating in a very brief survey. It's 5 questions. They're mostly multiple choice, and it generally takes about a minute to a minute and a half to complete. But the feedback that you share with us in those 5 questions, we then share with our partners over at Ventura County, and we collectively make sure that we are meeting and hopefully exceeding your expectations with trainings like these. So if you could take a minute at the end, you'll see a QR code. Also, when you close out of Zoom, you'll see a browser window pop up. All you have to do is click opt-in. So we hope that you'll help us out with that. And again, today our training is brought to you by our partners over at Ventura County. And today we're so happy to be joined by Colleen Smith, who is a business solutions specialist, to share more about those resources available to employers like yourself. Hi, Colleen.
Hello everyone. Thank you for being here today. As Anna said, my name is Colleen Smith. I'm a business solutions specialist with the Workforce Development Board of Ventura County. Our business solutions team offers various resources and programs for our local businesses here in Ventura County. I will put my contact information as well as our business solution services guide, that's kind of a mouthful, in the chat. Please feel free to look at the flipbook. It denotes all of the services and resources that we offer to our local employers. And also please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have for any of your business needs. I want to bring everyone's attention to our complimentary HR hotline for employers. You can just call this number. Say you don't have a robust HR team, but you do have HR questions. You can contact this line. The number is right there, and you will get a live person to answer any of your human resources related questions. Things like hiring and firing, breaks, lunches, overtime, harassment prevention, questions about new labor laws, employee handbooks, everything like that. So we really encourage everyone to take advantage of this wonderful service. It's just one of the many services that we can offer here at the Workforce Development Board. And like I said, I will put my contact information and the link to the flipbook in the chat. And please feel free to contact me directly, and we would love to help your business out. And with that, thank you for having me today, and I will send it back to our wonderful partners at CEA.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. And thank you to Cynthia, Rebecca, the whole team behind the scenes over at Ventura County for all that you do for employers in your region. So now I'd like to introduce our trainer today. We have Astrid Servin, one of our HR directors. So you are in great hands. And if you have called into that HR hotline, maybe you've had the pleasure of working with her directly. So I'll kick it over to you, Astrid.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, Ventura County. We really appreciate having you here this morning. So welcome to today's webinar. It's a very important topic. A couple things before we get started. As Colleen said, you have that wonderful 800 number that you can call into for any kind of HR questions. But if you need a little bit additional support, you may want to consider membership. California Employers Association does offer a membership plan. We provide HR consulting and compliance training and coaching services. So you have that wonderful 800 number that you can call in anytime. But if you'd like to consider membership, please visit us at employers.org And visit us there anyway, regardless, because we have a lot of free resources for employers as well. And then while you're there, you might want to take a look and see what other additional things we offer, such as handbook templates, policies, forms, guidelines, fact sheets on a variety of topics, trainings for your supervisors, such as this one, and in addition to others. So take a look in there at employers.org when you get a chance. This presentation shouldn't be relied upon as legal advice. This is our little legal disclaimer. We want you to consult your own attorney for anything that comes up that's legally significant to you. That conversation will be privileged and confidential, so we would rather you talk to your legal counsel. We are here to help you with any HR related things, and a lot of times we can help you set that whatever concern or issue or project up so that then you can go to your legal team and it'll cost you maybe a little bit less. So definitely use us ahead of time, but we will let you know when you need to present it to legal counsel. So let's talk a little bit about performance reviews. I've been in HR for a long time, close to 20 years now. So that's the topic too that gets the least amount of attention and the least enthusiasm. And why is that? It's such an important topic. And as I was prepping for this webinar, in fact, I was like, I hope somebody shows up for this, because I feel like we think it's important, but yet so many companies fail to do this easy step of performance reviews and actually taking the time to sit with employees and do that. And maybe because it does seem daunting and it seems like it's a difficult thing, or maybe it's you get nervous about doing it possibly. So a lot of variety of reasons why maybe we don't do it, but we all probably agree that it is important to do performance management, to do performance reviews. So I'm glad you're here. Kudos to you for making the effort to make this process maybe a little bit easier. So I'm hoping that's what you get out of this training today. So we're going to talk about the importance of performance management, the types of evaluations and the different options that you have. We'll give you some tips. And my goal here is just to make this process easier for you and to take this information to your team and to your company and to other people you know, so that you kind of make this process a lot easier. Okay, so we're going to talk about writing and delivering effective evaluations, and then the follow through that goes along with that as well. So let's get started. Employee engagement and performance management. Engagement was a big buzzword like 5 years ago, and it kind of stuck around. And I think it never really went away because we all agree that engagement is very important. We want our employees engaged, we want them to stay with us, and that means a lot to us. And performance management plays a big part of that. So what is employee engagement? What are the characteristics of an engaged employee? It's, you want them, employee engagement can really increase productivity. People are more loyal. It's going to be increase their loyalty to you. It's going to be a positive thing that comes to mind, because a motivated employee will increase productivity. They're going to feel vested. A loyal employee will have the best interest for the company, which in turn leads to a positive, fulfilled employee. And that's going to improve your retention. Of course, we want them to stay. And when you have invested employees who are there, that's going to boost innovation. You're suddenly going to have people that are sharing their ideas, and it really works well. Think of a time when you felt highly engaged at your work and what made you feel that way. Think about that right now. Hopefully it's where you're at right now, I hope. And if not, it really makes you think about, am I in the right position? Am I in the right company? Because you should feel engaged. You should feel in an environment where you're feeling innovated, where you're sharing ideas, and you want to stay. How did your high level of engagement affect your work? You probably were thinking more creatively, and you were probably happy. So putting it simply, an engaged employee is involved and enthusiastic about and emotionally connected to his or her work. It's such an important thing. It really just brings it all in. We just feel more centered that way. Here's a visual, because sometimes it kind of helps to give a visual of how it shows up in behaviors. So you have an engaged employee who's more proactive, motivates others, enjoys their job, they communicate well. They're going to accept mistakes because we're only human. We're going to take those mistakes. We're collaborative and we'll ask for help. A disengaged employee is pushed to work, complains about work, wants to change their job, avoids communication. Maybe they blame others and they want to work alone independently because who knows what they're doing, and they don't ask questions. So we really have a difference here. And if you're dealing with a disengaged employee, it is very difficult. And so we do need to manage those employees out, coach them out. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So this is we have some information here, an article from Gallup that was written a few years ago, but it still kind of rings true today. And this is what employees need from leadership now. So what do they need? And they really need, what we found is a clear plan of action. Employees want to know what it is from their leadership, what it is they need to do, what to get things right. Without a clear plan of action, employees trust less in the outcomes and start to worry about all the uncertainties. I'm not sure what he wants from me or what she wants from me. And then any tool or resources to help employees continue to do their job. You have the knowledge as a leader, give it to them. You know, what is it that they need? What resources do they need? Do they need additional training? Frequent updates and communication, checking in with them often. That's very important. And we're going to talk a lot about that. The frequent updates, the coaching, all that is very important from leadership. And that's what employees need. And then a genuine and continued concern for employees' well-being. And we need to make sure we have the proper managers, the proper leadership in place, because if we don't have them fully engaged and invested, and like the slide we saw before, then this is going to have a trickle effect and it's not going to work well for your staff. So make sure that you have the proper management, that they're trained on this topic, that they're also vested in what they're doing as a supervisor or manager, so that this in turn works well. So we have these terminology: performance evaluation, performance management. There's a difference between the two, and we're going to talk about that next, because performance management is something very different than performance evaluation. Performance evaluation is a way of capturing what has been happening throughout the year. And we have like a little document there. It's also termed a review or an appraisal. It's summarizing the performance over a specific period of time. So we maybe do these annually, performance reviews, or we do a 90-day checkup or an appraisal at 6 months. Whatever you call it is fine. It doesn't matter what you call it, but that performance evaluation is a formal document. And it's written, and it's a moment in time, a specific moment in time that you're capturing. Performance management, on the other hand, is an ongoing process of monitoring this employee's performance. It's going to occur throughout the year, not just at set points, but throughout the years. And it's a time where a manager is giving set objectives, it's giving feedback, it's coaching, it's developing plans of action for the employee. And all this is the goal is to ensure that we're aligning with the business strategy and with the business goals. That's really the goal of this whole thing, of why we're checking in with them. So why is performance management beneficial to employers? Because we want to do this because it benefits us as an employer. And again, studies show that it increases productivity. In fact, it improves it so much so from 19 to 27% when companies engage in actually talking to their employees and doing performance management and doing performance evaluations. Companies with these strong performance management systems outperform the others that do not by 19 to 27%. There's this ongoing engagement, and studies show employees would rather have some level of feedback. I know I do. It's hard to work for an employer who doesn't talk to you, you don't know how you're doing. Good or bad, employees want to know. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? If I need to be disciplined, discipline me, but don't just talk it through or let it slide. It gives employees mixed messages. Documentation is really protective of that employer. The company needs to provide any kind of legal protection if an employee is really not functioning well, is not there. This is going to serve to prove your point and steer you away from any kind of harassment or discrimination claim. And then it offers valuable feedback from employee about the company and supervisor. If there's an issue, a concern, this is the time where employee feels like they can come to you and give you that feedback. So it's providing a regular outlet for providing any kind of problem or concern that might come up with the employee. And we want to know. We don't want them to go to a lawyer or a third-party agency. We want them to come to us. So that's how it benefits the company. But here are the benefits for the employee. It's going to give them clear direction, an expectation of what is expected of them. I'm going to remind you of your performance role and the company role and the goals so that I know exactly which way I'm supposed to go. It's going to give you feedback regarding their performance and their growth, and then input, of course, that regular output, because now I feel comfortable coming to you if I'm being harassed, if this workload I'm way in over my head. If I need additional training, I'm going to have a regular outlet to give any input about my job, my coworkers, my department, and it provides motivation. We perform our best when we're recognized and when we're rewarded, and that's naturally going to happen if you're checking in with your employees. So this performance management works in so many different levels to just have a positive work environment for that employee to work in. So remember, as a leader, you are a coach and you're continuously coaching. Coaching supports employees through the entire employment cycle. It's really just about how you engage with them on work-related issues. So when it comes to coaching and disciplining, it's about creating a space for the employees to tell their story. Any kind of barriers they might face, it's their time to really just, they need you. They need you as a leader to show them the way. But you need to be, as a leader, you need to be coachable. You need to be that person who they can depend on to do it and have that kind of open relationship. And that takes time. You got to earn their trust as a leader. And then if you are dealing with a problem employee, which so many of us are, and I'm assuming you do since you're on here, dealing with some problem performers, then you can use this coaching as documentation to support whatever it is that you need, any kind of discipline, any kind of issue that maybe this is just not going to work out and we need to maybe manage you out, then this is going to help you get to that point. So we're going to talk about purpose and why we do it, and what's the benefits of a performance review. That was performance management. Now formally documenting a performance review. What's the purpose? Well, we want the employee to perform their best to their best abilities. Sometimes we don't hire the right person for the right position. That happens too, and whose fault is that? There's a little bit of blame maybe on both parties. But we want to make sure that we address these issues that we have and checking in with the employee, and that we're clearly defining those goals, recognizing any kind of accomplishment. I find it hard to believe if you've been with an employee for a year and you're at the performance review part that there isn't anything for you to actually recognize. So make sure that this performance review is accurate. Of course, it's an opportunity to address any concerns that have come up in the year, but we also want to recognize the accomplishments. So it's going to be a formal way of documenting what they've done right. And it's going to guide the process. How are they doing in that year or in that 6 months, whatever your review time is. The effective performance appraisal is going to continue to redefine what their job description is. Where are we at now? Has it changed? Has the job needs changed? The business needs changed? What's expected of them now? Or maybe they're going on to a new skill. We need to train you on something new. I can tell you at CEA, I am doing so much different than I was 6 years ago when I first started. My job description, what I do is very different. And so along the way in my reviews, we've discussed what's the next step. And then of course, you're setting goals along the way. What's new for the next year. You're going to identify areas for personal growth. So almost everyone has an area that they can grow on. Even your stellar employee, you can probably find something for them to professionally grow in. So we're going to have that opportunity to, again, formally document that and then discuss any kind of career advancement. Are they fine where they're at? Is there something that they aspire to do? Is there a job that maybe doesn't exist that they would like to maybe consider and put it in your brain to maybe develop? And then, of course, this whole document really protects your organization. It's a moment in time because you may not be the manager that's there 5 years from now. So it's a moment in time that captures what the employee is doing right, wrong, or indifferent at that time. And so we really, it creates this protection from the company. We want to make sure that we leave this document for any kind of future manager that might be managing this employee. So again, this is why this is very beneficial. That was the purpose of it, and how are we benefiting from this? There's an exchange of this feedback about performance. We're not talking about this it's very awkward at first sometimes to sit in front of your employee and start discussing these things, but it's a necessary thing. We're now motivating the employee to develop, to improve, or correct these issues that we're having, or maybe continue good and you're doing great, so keep doing what you're doing. And it provides a mutually acceptable document now, record, both parties, right? Because they can take that documentation to future jobs for future careers. And really, I know if you've said in an interview, you may have done that, pulled out your previous performance reviews. Sometimes to a recruiter, that's gold. We want to see how you were evaluated. So it creates a good record for both parties. Helps employees see how valuable they are and that they contribute to the team's success. Now you have them vested in the goals of the company. And it provides data for determining compensation, maybe in future job assignments. So we're going to talk about tying in performance reviews with compensation, and towards the end of this presentation, some companies do and some companies don't, but definitely this information, this data that you capture is going to help either way, whether you do them at that moment or whether you do them later in the year. And then if there are developmental needs, of course, we're documenting that as well. Sometimes a performance review serves as a form of discipline. Maybe we've already given them a performance action plan or a written warning, and now we're sitting down and doing the review, and we're acknowledging that written warning was given or that performance approval plan was done, and we're acknowledging that, we're documenting it, and then we move on to what's up for the next year. And we can use that. Let's say we're going to terminate that employee. Then this serves as how much documentation do we have? We had 2 written warnings, and we have a performance review that was maybe showing that they were underperforming. All that is great documentation for a company. So of course we can write really bad reviews that get us in trouble as well. So truly bad reviews can be damaging to your employees and even to your company. It's going to be difficult. Negative effects of a poorly done performance review or appraisal is number 1, turnover. You're going to lose that employee. This is costly, and maybe that wasn't your intention at all. And maybe your intention was just to have them improve, but because of the way you executed that warning, the way you delivered it, the way you wrote it, it's going to cause that employee to go so far as to possibly quit. And maybe that's what you wanted, but we shouldn't that's not the point of a performance review. It can also, a poorly written performance review, disengage that employee. You now have an employee who's upset and is not going to show up. They're not motivated. They have a bad attitude because, again, the way it was delivered, the way you wrote it. And that's why we're going to talk about the correct ways of writing reviews. We want a good reaction coming out of that. Even if your intent is that they move on from this company and you're addressing performance issues, there's a good and positive way to do that. Because if you do it the wrong way, then the third one, which is the worst case scenario, can happen, which is a lawsuit. You have a very angry employee. We've seen it happen. I know I've seen it happen. Our team has seen it happen many times. You have a very angry employee who may want to get even with you, and now they're doing a lawsuit. And they're going to point to that performance review, and if it was poorly done, if it was an emotionally charged review, they're going to use it against you. We've seen it happen. And even if you're right, it can be very expensive to defend. So we don't want to be in that scenario. Okay, so let's make sure we stay away from poorly written reviews and talk about how to write a good review. What are we going to do? Well, some companies get input from the employees. They ask the employee to self-evaluate. This may or may not work for your company. We're going to kind of review it and see if that's something you want to do, or maybe you do already. The benefits of self-review, so we ask the employee to evaluate themselves, is that the employee knows ahead of time that they'll be asked to self-review, and so they give it more thoughtful reflection of what they want to write in their review and they want included in their review. Employees participate significantly more, we find, when they are, because they wrote it, right? They're writing part of it. So we find that they're more invested in what's being discussed. And employees tend to be less defensive because they kind of created some of that topic and that content. Employees will perceive the review process as more positive overall as well. So at the end of this, when you give them the evaluation, I'm going to give you some suggested language and questions of how they can do a self-evaluation. But after they complete that self-review, you can either incorporate what they wrote into a different review and discuss the review, during the actual meeting, or you can have that be the formal review process with your notes on the side, or however you want to do it is okay. I would suggest rewriting your own, having the employee self-evaluation and then the manager's evaluation. That way both are on the record. So here's a sample self-review questions. We want to make them open-ended, so you can give them a document that asks questions such as this. Come up with your own. These are just some suggestions. To what extent did I reach my target objectives this year? What were my specific accomplishments? What targets did I fall short of meeting? How could my manager help me do a better job? And is there anything that the company or my manager does that hinders my effectiveness? And if so, what? So again, this is all creating dialogue for your meeting with them. You're asking them pretty important questions here about their capabilities, about their objectives, what they think they've done right. Maybe they need more experience or training, so you can come back and address all of these before you maybe do your own review. So have them answer yours, and then you can answer these same questions. And how would you answer them? How do they differ? And that's your topic of discussion when you meet with them. So get input from others as well, especially 100% true if you haven't managed this employee for the full year. If maybe you know, it was someone you obtained through a promotion, or maybe you were hired in and you've only worked with them for 3 months, how are you going to evaluate them for a year? In fact, I had a company who hired me as a consultant through CEA, and they wanted us to do the evaluations for them. And I thought, how am I going to review your employees? I don't know them. And they handed me kind of performance things, and they wanted me to write the reviews and deliver them. And so, see, you know, we refused. We couldn't do that. We could sit there. We found a way to do that. So what we did was have a workshop with the managers where they did their own reviews, and we assisted in kind of the thought process very much like we're doing now, so that they could write their own reviews, provided templates, that sort of thing. And then we were in the room when they delivered the review. So HR can definitely assist and help, but you want employees, managers who know the employee. And again, if it's not you, then you're going to reach out to managers who do know the employee, or maybe employees who interact with them frequently. Be sure your feedback is centered on work objectives and not the employee's personality. That's a big one, because we get stuck on that employee personality, especially if they have a strong one, instead of what is their work objectives. Did they actually accomplish what they needed to do? Both are important, but you know, this is a performance review for a year. So I'm hoping that if they have an attitude problem, that was addressed through a written warning. The performance review is like we're talking about their objectives. Ask the following: what successes from this past year should this employee be recognized for? Because it might be something you didn't notice that they did. What suggestions do you have for this employee to become an even more valuable contributor? And what should this employee keep doing, stop doing, and start doing? So again, ask colleagues. We sometimes with big corporate companies, they do what's called a 360 review process, where they go to all their colleagues and all their coworkers, all of their managers and higher managers, and really get a big perspective on this employee. Excuse me. But most of the time, we don't need to do something that extensive. Okay, my apologies there. Okay. We want to make sure that we're being truthful as well. And effective evaluations are professional, they're respectful and honest. We want to be specific, no surprises, and they're backed up with accurate documentation. So have consistent documentation. We're going to make sure that this process is done for everyone as well, not just for the person that's not doing well. We want to make sure that we're being honest, and that there's no conflicting documentation, because that's really sending mixed messages, and it gives the employees, and by the way, the courts, a choice to make. So we want to make sure that this employee is not hearing you're a great employee throughout the year, but then we get to the review time and it's actually very poorly written, and suddenly they're doing negative and they haven't heard any of that throughout the year. So we don't want surprises. We want to make sure that we're being truthful. And I can't tell you how many times this actually happens. Okay, so avoid bad documentation. We don't want opinions, and that's really hard for managers sometimes. We don't want to be descriptive about how we feel. So things like Mike is sloppy, Alice is lazy, Tom seemed to be lying to me, Mark has an attitude problem. We don't want these kinds of things in documentation. You don't want them to be part of a lawsuit where a jury or a judge is looking at this. It's your opinion. We want to deal with facts. So instead of saying Alice is lazy, you can actually say Alice has been late, 3 times this week. Mike is sloppy can be Mike didn't wear his proper uniform or doesn't come to work with a clean uniform. That's factual versus the opinions. Avoid labeling. Mary is irresponsible. George is not a team player. Say what happened. Whenever we do investigations or people call into the hotline and they're like, he's a horrible employee, just want to fire them. And we'll say, what do they do? And they give us a lot of this stuff. We'll dig further. But what did they do? Like, give me the actual example so that is a factual statement. Avoid, and again, it could be that they're irresponsible, they're not a team player, but we don't want that kind of documentation and wording on a formal document that could end up in court. Avoid trying to interpret the employee's behavior. Marcia must not like this assignment. She appears to be in over her head. Again, factual, right? Because you can leave and this supervisor might be gone, and now this next supervisor inherits this employee, and now they're going, well, what does irresponsible mean? Like, if you would have given me the actual incident, then I can continue on with that if it continues to be a problem. So remember, documentation needs to be factual, fair, legal, objective, complete, and consistent. And if you're unsure, call into us and say, how does this sound? Or talk to your a manager, a coworker, or someone and say, did I take my emotion out of this? I really just want to be fair and factual and just have the statements. So I'm going to give you some examples here of kind of some more meaningful review comments. Most of these are going to be positive, but it's showing more thoughtful review comments. So Rita Jones has demonstrated an ability to write professionally and complete RFPs or requests for proposals within set timelines. Rita has consistently been able to produce complex proposals quickly due to the strong relationship she has built. So let's go to that last one. Mark Smith has had 8 unexcused absences in the past year. Mark was given a written warning in October, and since then he has made great strides towards improvement in his attendance. This improvement must be sustained throughout the current performance cycle. Beautiful. That's a beautiful written statement there. Very factual. We're acknowledging that, yes, there's been improvement, but we need it to continue. It needs to be sustained throughout the process. So, documentation. Another dreaded word that supervisors don't like to hear, they hate to hear, but for the employee, documentation says that this was important enough to be written down, and it really avoids surprises. And I know that manager who's being nice and not documenting things or letting it slide, and then we know that it comes back to haunt them at the end, right? Because employees get mad and then something horrible happens and managers are like, well, I didn't write it down, or no, I let it slide, I was being nice, and that niceness doesn't help anyone. So you're building a case for yourself to show that you're making sound business decisions and you're not discriminating against them. Because what happens when we don't document factual stuff, the employee then forms something like, he doesn't like me. It must be because of fill in the blank. And now that's what they're going to go to that lawyer with, right? They're going to say, they don't like me, I'm being picked on, and it's not factual. And when in fact it really was, but we fail to document that stuff. So it details the expectations were discussed with the employee. It offers a history of the performance over time, and it's chronological and precise. So this is what happened first, this is what we did to improve, this is what continues to happen, or maybe there was an improvement. So it really is a chronological history. It provides that evidence and support the manager needs should they continue with the disciplinary process, and possibly, or if it's a positive thing, then maybe it's good evidence for a promotion possibly. So provides proof again to justify salary increases if you're doing that, or salary decreases, or maybe we're not giving a raise. So again, serves as formal documentation, not because we don't like you, but because there's actual documentation proving it. Very important. So why is there so much documentation? It really just that reason. It protects the employer and the employee both ways. Coaching documentations can be even more important in that it shows these things. It shows the employee was aware of the job performance standards, that they knew how to perform the job, that they failed to meet a reasonable standard of performance, and finally, it helps show that the employer used good faith and fair dealing. We're not picking on this employee. We're really giving them an opportunity and a chance instead of, they never told me, and this is what employees say, they never told me there was a problem, and it's going to be your word against theirs, right? If they say, I was never told, I didn't know how, they never trained me on it, and they're now picking on me. That's why. It's because I asked for, or I filed a complaint. That's why they're mad at me. And now they're building maybe a retaliation claim. So very important that we do these things, and it really serves a good purpose. Nobody likes surprises. Someone said, remember your ABCs, which is always be coaching, okay? Don't wait until a review to tell your employees that they haven't been doing well or to praise them for a job well done. Do it continuously. Coaches are continuously coaching. Just like in a game, right? You're continuously coaching while, I just went to my kid's softball game last night, and you know, the coach is continuously letting them know, here's what you did, this is what you failed to do, or you did this really good, keep it up. You know, coaching is continuously. The review should be just that, a review of the prior year's performance against the prior year's goal. So difference there. Emphasize what's working well and agree upon what needs improvement, and then set those goals for the upcoming review period. So now you've written this beautiful, wonderful, direct, and compliant review, and now it's time to give it to the employee. So this is your opportunity to make your employee feel valued and engaged and important. So this is the power that you have when you deliver a review. So don't forget it. You have a lot of authority and power here. And you want them to leave this review in a positive way, hopefully inspired, right? But definitely not wanting to sue you. That's not the goal here. So let's review kind of the elements of delivering a dynamic review. We want to prepare, and then we want to prepare, and then we want to prepare again. So we want to make sure we know what we're saying. And I can't tell you how much people just skip this step. You know, we get it done, kind of like that company I said kind of hired us and said, just do it. I mean, they weren't really vested in what they were doing. And so we really do need to take the time to prepare for that. Because when you're in there with that employee, and it is sometimes awkward because you're in this space and it's just you and this employee talking about their performance, it's very personal, then you want to make sure you know this review well, you know what you're going to say, you know how you're going to respond if they're defensive. So it provides this two-way street. That conversation should be give and take, okay? Both parties are talking and dialoguing here. Encourage that dialogue. Ask open-ended questions. And then, of course, there's probably always going to be something you can recognize them for. So give recognition for that good performance, especially if maybe things have changed and shifted. Make sure that we're recognizing them for that extra work that they've maybe have done. And then mutually set goals, include professional development there and maybe any training that they might have. You know, we don't always have training available, but there's always coaching opportunities or other things that you can offer employees, or go to your management team and say, you know, we need to work on this professional development and use it more often during this interview time, performance time. Okay, so we talked about the importance of preparation. Think about the appropriate time and place. Most reviews we find in studies are done between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. If you're looking at a normal like 9 to 6 type job, they happen during 3 to 6, but we find that the optimal time is between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. earlier in the day. You have time, you're not rushed. We want to make sure we have ample time to have this meeting. So make sure the time is right. We're not rushing through it. And then the place, you know, you may not want to meet in the normal office. Maybe if there's a desk and a chair where we're kind of in front of each other that way, you might want to be more relaxed, maybe in the break room, maybe in a different place. I know I had a boss who would take me out to lunch. We would go to a restaurant. It was a working lunch and we would discuss it there. And it was nice. It was kind of a neutral area where we can discuss away from work. So you want to discuss the agenda before the review. Hey, this is how it works. This is how our reviews work at this company, especially with new employees. This is what we do. And then documentation of you want to include the employee's performance, the definition of what good performance is, because they might have like, well, I am doing a good job. Well, you may think you're doing a good job, but here's what is supposed to be done. Here's the job description, or here's what a good employee does for a particular position. And maybe they're exceeding that, which is great. And then, of course, in that, you're going to prepare the performance expectations as well. Okay. There we go. Use open-ended questions. Okay, it helps to think of an appraisal as a two-way conversation. It should be an exchange of information, not a one-way street. So conversation is not a presentation. We're not presenting the review to them and so blah, 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 where it's an exchange of information. So seek to understand if employee is underperforming. Why? You know, hey, you know, we have some difficult things to discuss today. Here are some facts of how you failed in this particular performance issue. Why do you think that is? Less likely to claim they didn't know what was expected of them if we're asking these open-ended questions, if we're discussing them that way. And things like, which part of the job do you feel you're doing well? How are you assessing your success? Which parts do you feel need to be improved and why? Really getting their buy-in on it as well, okay? Sometimes employees are timid about, you know, sharing some things. Maybe they do have developmental challenges or problems or concerns. Maybe something's happening at home, especially if you have a long-term employees who have always done well and suddenly there's a change. That's when you should have already addressed it likely, you know, before the performance review, but definitely address it then, okay? So it seems like a simple thing, giving recognition when it's due, but so often missed. So we want to just remind you and include this in the performance review webinar here. Just we want managers to remember to give recognition to their employees when they do a good job and give specific examples of what they did right and how they're contributing to the team. Again, because they're becoming more invested in you as a company when you do that. But give those specific examples, not just thanks for your contribution, you're doing great, but why, how? How did that make your workload maybe easier? If performance requires improvement, then of course we're coaching them. And if employee has maybe adeptly absorbed responsibilities, maybe there's been some staff shortages, recognize and appreciate the employees for that, because that goes a long way, right? You got to keep those employees motivated. Sometimes morale goes down when we have staffing shortages or when we're just pulling more than we usually do and we're working hard. And yes, we're getting it done, but maybe, it took a little bit more effort. So ensure that we're recognizing those efforts. So poor performance, if the issue is poor performance or poor motivation, you can't have that employee who just can't get motivated. Try to understand the cause of that poor performance. Is it a lack of ability versus a lack of motivation, or is it something else? Addressing poor performance, how? Do we need to maybe offer more training? Do we need to shift job duties? Professional development possibly? Do we need to assign them with a mentor? Don't just give up on this employee. See if there's other ways that we can motivate this employee. Maybe something else is going on. We have home life issues, stressors that happen. See if you can address this. And again, this is even more important when you had an employee who has done very well, who has always had positive reviews, and suddenly they're struggling. Try to understand what it is. Why are they not motivated? Some more here to solve some poor performance and addressing that lack of ability. Again, maybe they need to train in a different way. Maybe their employee learning style is different than what you're used to. So do you need to train them in a different way? Again, be creative on how. Maybe ask them, we've tried this traditional way of training you and it hasn't worked. Now, are there any other suggestions? Is there a different way we can try? Overly difficult tasks are part of the job. Consider shifting one or more of those to a more senior or highly trained employee. Listen to your employee. You may feel that they are equipped and should be able to do this, but it may not. Really talk to them about it. If they are a good employee and you don't want to lose them, consider shifting that maybe responsibility to a more senior employee. Or consider transferring them to a completely different role within the company if you have it available, if their skill set is there for something else, then making sure that we align them to what they're good at. Now, it may not work out. I know you may not have the proper person, or they may not be a different position for them to be transferred to. But again, we're going through the process, and it's showing good faith on the company that we've gone through the process of eliminating this as a maybe solution. And if you've done all these things, and again, you're showing good faith in that, there's just really nothing, this is just not going to work out. And it's really kind of a good step of addressing the issue that this is not going to work out. We need to manage them out. So what if the problem is lack of motivation? Discuss observed changes in interactions or quality to uncover the cause. We noticed there's a change in how you do this process. Is something happening? Is there an issue or concern at home or even in the workplace? Are they being harassed? Are they being bullied? These things are real, they happen. Examine your team's interactions with each other to determine if the issue is isolated or maybe it's part of a bigger problem. Do we have a bully in the workplace? Do we have a team that's just not jiving here? Is there a bad seed somewhere? Or is it a problem that we're having? If employee talks about personal health or caregiving issues, you're going to want to probably escalate that to HR, or if you're the one that deals with it, then discuss potential leaves or maybe even reasonable accommodations. We want to make sure that we, again, keep that dialogue going. I'm trying to resolve it. And the most important thing, again, from a compliance HR director, is that you're showing good faith, that you've crossed that T, you dotted that I, because what we don't want is an employee to say later that this was really the issue that was happening, but they were never given an opportunity to say what the problem was. That happens more often than you think. So prepare to set new objectives. If we're going to switch over to goals and how we're going to set goals, and you may have heard of this strategy, the SMART strategy. It might be something you adopt. It deals with very specific things. So we're going to give you an example of one in the next slide, but to just kind of go over what SMART, the acronym, means is the S stands for specific. make goals specific and narrow for more effective planning. And then we have the M, which is measurable, define what evidence will prove that progress is being made, and then reevaluate as necessary. Attainable, make sure the goal can be reasonably accomplished within a certain time frame. That's really important. Reasonable is very important there. We're not going to set them up to fail, okay? And then R, relevant, goals should align with the values and long-term objectives. And then time-based, set a realistic, ambitious end date for tasks to promote prioritization and motivation. We really need this to be, what is the time frame that we really need them to know? So let's give you an example here in the next slide of what a SMART goal looks like. And we're kind of going to pretend here that this employee works in the medical field as a record specialist. And so here's the SMART goal timeline, the strategy here. They're specific. Patient record must be kept up to date because it ensures the most current information is always available for billing, diagnosis, treatment, and discharge. It is a high priority for the department and impacts your performance appraisals and promotional opportunities in all patient-related staff positions. Wow, very specific. Measurable. 100% of patient records updated by shifts end. That's what we need to measure. Attainable. We both agreed. It's agreed that you are equipped for this task. You don't need additional training. We've discussed that. You know that you have the skill set to do that, and you will seek help from me or another RN on duty. The resources, well, what resources do you have? You can list things like job description in here too. All policies and procedures for this task are online. Our hard copies are in the staff library in the second floor. Very specific too. And then the timeline. All patient records must be updated by shift's end. Again, we've given you when, so the time frame there that needs to be done. So very, very detailed and very specific SMART goal. And again, very easy. A lot of companies use this SMART strategy. It may be something that is effective and works for you. So what are our objectives and what type of objectives do we have? We tend to have two types, results-based and behavioral-based. Behavioral-based objectives are generally tougher to write than objectives you can measure with hard data. You know, for example, results-based are, you know, you have to provide value. Added customer service by obtaining 78 customer referrals per quarter. And so this is the results is, again, increased total number of new accounts by additional 10% by the end of the quarter. Spend 60% available time on development and related efforts. So very specific to the job itself. Behavioral based is, again, you've got to kind of leave the emotion out of it, you know, but we can of course have this objective. Present a professional image by maintaining a neat work area equipped with supplies and materials, maintain customer focus, follow up on each customer problem until resolved satisfactorily, be respectful of end users by using non-technical language and descriptions during project meetings. So you may want to get some help on these, especially the behavioral based ones, because they're sometimes our opinion or emotion gets into it, and so a little bit tougher to write. So when the meeting ends, you and the employee should walk away with a clear picture of the rating that you gave the employee. You should have reviewed the year's accomplishments, discuss the improvement areas, what the next cycle and goal is, strategies about how employee is going to meet those goals, and then any kind of professional development for the coming cycle. That's what our goal is here. So, phew, you did it. You got it done. Congratulations, you did it. Now what? You did this whole review, you delivered it, you had that kind of awkward conversation with them, but you feel good about it. So you're not done, right? I hope you know that, because coaching is ongoing, right? So we're going to have post-review follow-through. So after the evaluation, we want to schedule regular meetings with this employee to monitor progress. We want to be prepared, again, that P word, prepared, to offer this motivational and informative feedback as needed. We're going to keep the conversation going. We had this conversation, and you want to maybe schedule the time, like be very thoughtful about it. As soon as you're done with that employee, put something on your calendar, because life happens and business happens and you get very busy, and your intention was to meet with them, and suddenly here we are a year later and we forgot. So be thoughtful about it and actually schedule that time in. If the improvement plan isn't working, be prepared to change it, adapt to it, or move on to disciplinary, written warnings, performance improvement plans, that kind of thing. So does your company do performance appraisals and compensations? Do you guys tie it in together? Every company is different, and there's some kind of controversy apparently in the HR world of whether you should do this or not. So, if you're linking compensation and performance reviews at the same time, best practice is to make sure the metrics are clearly understood by the employees, be as transparent as possible about the decision-making process, be fair. It should be obvious to the employee that it is so, that this is the standard the company uses. Provide employees with evidence that clearly supports the rating that you're giving them. And, is it 1%, 2%, 5%? What is, if you get a number 3, then you get no raise. If you get a 4, you get a 4% raise, whatever that is. Be very clear and factual about it. Have separate meetings, one for the review and one for the compensation. Sometimes that fares better, goes better when you have this performance review, and then we'll discuss, tomorrow we'll discuss your compensation, because I got to talk about this. I promise we'll get back to you after this. We discuss your performance review and the feedback that you gave me, and now we're going to meet with you tomorrow regarding the compensation. But if it's the same meeting, reserve talk about compensation changes until the end of the meeting. Just going to go better if you save it for the end. And in fact, we do find that, let me go back to this slide, we do find that it is better to have it separated. So if possible, if you can have the performance appraisal and the compensation meeting completely different. So I understand you might do it one day and one day after, but for example, CEA does it that way, where we just do annual reviews or 2 times a year reviews, and they are not tied to compensation. Compensation is something that happens at a completely different time of the year. And yes, we might look at the performance appraisal and the performance reviews throughout the year to help us with that number, but they are not in the same conversation. They are not even in the same time frame as the review. They're just people, we know that performance reviews are done at a certain time and they're not tied to compensation. And then we do a compensation analysis and all that at a different time. So that might be something that, again, you might want to adopt. It creates less tension, and that meeting that you're having within the performance reviews is, it kind of lowers the temperature a little because we know that there's not a money thing attached to it. It really provides a good discussion time for them. Make sure there's no questions here. We're kind of at the end. And please ask away if you have anything specific that you want to discuss. Let me know. I'm looking at the chat here, and yeah, people are saying specific examples are so helpful. Absolutely. So let's look at the takeaways here. Remember, performance evaluation and performance management are equally important. Both serve their purpose. The performance evaluation is something you want to keep, you want to make sure you document. And I can't tell you again, as an HR director working in compliance, looking at things in court cases and all that, how much those performance evaluations really save a company. But I've also seen them damage a company, because when you're in court, the judge will ask the employee, maybe that's suing you, to pick specifics from the performance evaluation that they want included in evidence. And they're going to leave the good stuff out. They're going to leave that stuff out. And they're going to pick out where maybe it was a very emotional thing, and the employee might be suing the employer for discrimination, or, hey, they don't like me because of my religious observance, or whatever it could be. And now they're picking and choosing things from the review that they want on this. And it's really damaging. So make sure that you're writing well performance evaluations, that your performance management happens throughout the year so that there's no surprises. Have regular one-on-one meetings with your employees so that, again, there's no surprises, so that you're opening up dialogue for them. Keep legal requirements in mind to avoid claims of discrimination and promote inclusion in your appraisals. Again, these can be used against you just in the same way that written warnings can. So anything that is documented, including emails, is discoverable. So you want to be careful in how you word things. Be truthful in your appraisals. Thoroughly prepare and encourage dialogue, give recognition, and mutually set goals. And the way you're going to prepare and do that is you're going to have an agenda. You've probably been told a million times that a successful meeting has a clear agenda. It really does. The same goes for appraisal meetings. Once your agenda gets mixed in with another important agenda, you're going to lose sight of that goal. So you don't want, hey, we're going to discuss these 3 things. Your performance review is going to be done today, but we also need to discuss your attendance and it might be part of it, but you don't want to take that meeting as an opportunity to discuss other issues that might weigh in, or you're going to lose sight of the goal of this performance review and what it was. The goal is to discuss your performance only and not these other things. Include talk about employees' professional development. Do they aspire to do something else within the company? Is there something else that we can work with them on? Really, this is a good time to pause and talk about any kind of development plan that we might get them on. Don't forget about post-review follow-through. Like I just finished saying, it's going to be an ongoing thing throughout the employee cycle. And then know your company and how they handle appraisals and compensation. If you've never done them before, great tool to take now. And actually CEA is getting ready to do a whole packet on performance appraisals. So if that's something that you're interested in, just let us know. You can put it in the chat. We're going to do a bundle packet where we're actually going to provide templates, a video for your supervisors to follow along with. A lot of the information that's in this webinar will be included on there too, just to kind of make this process a lot easier for managers to write reviews. And so kind of like I said, we did for the client where we went there and did sort of a workshop. We'll do like a little bundle package is what we're hoping to do and have out within the next few months. Again, those know how your company handles that, and do you handle compensation at the same time or not? Make sure you review that with your supervisors and train them on it as well. Well, that was a lot of information. I hope you learned something today, or at least I encourage you to maybe feel like this process is a little bit more manageable. And take, again, these slides as a reminder of how to do this process. It's important as long as you're organized and thoughtful about the process. It doesn't have to be daunting. And you can always give us a call. Ventura County has this wonderful resources for you. So please make sure that you take this number down, that you share it with other businesses in Ventura County so that they can also take this as a very useful resource that you might have. And again, if you're interested in that bundle, I see somebody is already. We're going to take note of your information. I hope Anna can help me with that, because we really want this process to be easier. It's such an important topic, and if we can make it easier for your company to do, then that's what we want to do. Okay, so I am going to throw it back to you, Anna, I think, if you're ready.
I am ready. We'll give you a break. Astrid and I are both battling some really bad allergies right now. Even though we're on opposite ends of the state, somehow we are both we're both in it. So thank you guys for being kind to us. But again, as she said at the top of the hour, obviously this is sponsored by by the generosity of our partners over at Ventura County. But if you feel like you need more resources that we can help you with beyond the HR hotline, we invite you to check out some CEA membership. I highly recommend. If you are joining us for continuing education credits, excuse me, those codes are 698-536, SHRM code 25-RMY6K. If you need any assistance with redeeming those codes, what do I do with these? What's HRCI? What's SHRM? Reach out to us either at that HR hotline. We're happy to walk you through it, or ceainfo@employers.org. We're more than happy to point you in the right direction to make sure you get credit for joining us live today. And I think it was the slide before. Sorry, I think I had it in the opposite order. And as I mentioned, again, at the top of the hour, we do have an invitation here for you to share your feedback with us. If you like trainings like this, if you have suggestions for ones that you'd like to see in the future, this is your opportunity to share it with us. You can click on that QR code with your phone, or once you click out of Zoom here, you should see a browser window pop up with an invitation to opt in to participate in that brief survey. So we really hope that you take the opportunity to share with us. With that, I want to say, I think we have a bunch of people interested. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull all of the email addresses from the attendee list from Zoom after today. Once that bundle is ready, we will reach out to you all so you have you get first dibs on that. I know Astrid is working hard behind the scenes to bring that to life. So we're very excited to share that with you soon enough. So I will pull those email addresses. So with that, I want to say thank you, Astrid, for sharing your time and expertise with us. Thank you all for bringing questions and such great engagement today. And again, thank you to Colleen, Cynthia, Rebecca, the entire team over at Ventura County for producing webinar series like this. So we hope to see you on the next one, and have a great day. Cheers, everyone.